Good evening. Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Tonight, thanks to TouchLink, we're addressing the subject of absentee fathers. It's something that needs to be talked about. I would like to welcome Dr. Temitope Odukoya, but before we have her speak with us, I would like to talk a little bit about TouchLink. Touching was birthed as a result of our founder being abused, domestically abused and violated. She knows what it's like, and she advocates for no more abuse, be it women, men, or children. Their goal is to help people, survivors, and persons who are still being abused regain their freedom, regain their identity, regain who they were designed to be. There are many ways that we can support TouchLink. Um, if you're still being abused, we'd like you to reach out. You can reach out to www.touchlink.org. It's going to be in our comments if you want to use the direct link, or if you want to write that down. You can call at any time, 866-682-4 4. Please help me with that number. 4826. Yes, you can call them at any time. Right now, October is the month of domestic violence awareness. We would like to see no more abuse, but until then, we still have to make persons aware. We have to educate persons. And you can visit our website at www.touching.org, or visit us at on Eventbrite. You can register to walk. You can donate. We really need your support because it is a nonprofit, and every the donations go towards the victims and survivors of domestic abuse. Every penny goes towards them, and it's our main way of gaining funds through donations. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's very informative. All of the things that we've done so far this month and in the past, you can go, you can relook, you can make notes, you can share with friends, which is very important. Also, we would like you to once more, I would like to say we have our walk coming up on the 30th of October, and we would like everyone to be there. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends. Please bring your friends and show up. Let's make our voice count, and let's save someone's life, both today and for the rest of the year, because being informed is already saving our lives. I would like to go back if we have any inquiries about TouchLink, the organization, or if we need to reach out to someone. You don't have to give your name. You can just reach out to them, and they're willing to help you wherever you are. On that note, I would like us to return to our topic tonight on addressing absentee fathers. With us, we have Dr. Temitope Odukoya. I would like you to know that she is going to be speaking with us tonight. She's very informed in the area she's going to be talking about. Currently, she's the director of Medically Complex Care Clinic, also known as MCC. Also, she is involved in a patient care fellowship program. She's the director. She's the assistant professor of oral medicine and MCC Honors Program Director, Department of Oral Medicine. She is a lady with a lot of portfolios, but she's also willing to talk to us or to discuss. I mean, we want it to be as interactive as possible. She's willing to lead the conversation on absentee fathers tonight. Dr. Odukoya, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself before we dive into this topic?
Thank you, Sister Janelle. Thank you. Today I come as simply Temitope Odukoya. Without the titles. I come as a victorious survivor of domestic abuse, and I come as a mom, who has experienced the, I would say the pain of seeing, the effect of an absent father in the life of a child. And I also come as a person walking through the journey constantly. And that's, I kind of shuddered a little bit when, I won't say I'm an expert in the field. I'm a children's teacher. I'm a Sunday school children's teacher with, certificate with children evangelism ministry. And so children for me are, I'm very passionate about children and seeing children come out the best, the choices that children have, the choices we have made affect our children. They don't have to suffer the consequences of the choices we, the parents, made. And so because of that, how do we make the best of the situation and still bring out the best, in the life of the kids? And for me, that's something that a subject that I'm very passionate about. And that's a little bit about me on the topic.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the subject, and if there's anyone who wants to contribute as we go along, please feel free. I know there are lots of people on the line right now who can contribute. And if we have any questions, please feel free to share questions. You can unmute and you can ask, or you can drop a comment or question in the comment box. Okay, the floor is yours. So let's begin.
Thank you so much. I would like to start again by saying thank you to Deaconess Ewande for really just trusting God and launching out and impacting so many lives, including mine. I was just sharing before we started that I remember, it's actually very funny that we're talking about absent fathers today, because I remember after my first meeting with, Deaconess Ewande, the second time that I met her in person, she came all the way from New York to come and support me, New Jersey, to come and support me in court. I had a custody hearing and I was shaken to my bones, knowing that at that point, my son's father was using him as a tool, for, to fight whatever, where the child becomes a pawn in the whole story. And I remember how she came to support me in court that day. And those memories really stick. The strength that I have gotten over the years stem from all that beginning process and all the time that she took, to really spend a lot of time with me over the phone and all over at that beginning stage. So I'm really thankful. So you seeing me like this today, you're a very vital part of that story, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for TouchLink as a whole and for the lives that, that are constantly impacted. You don't know how much the support group has been a blessing. And for me, it's something that, every time somebody tells me a story about somebody going through something, when I can't, I try and talk to them, and the next thing I say is, have you heard about TouchLink? So I just want to thank God for a resource to share with. Okay, so let me just go back to the topic now, absentee fathers. I will just ask a few questions as I go along. And one of it is that how many of us, and I say us because, me inclusive, actually had found ourselves, if we can just say me in the chat, that would be nice for a little feedback. How many of us have actually, when we think back on why we did not leave the abusive situation, was because of the kids? You found yourself and you're like, why didn't I leave earlier than that? Earlier than I finally left. It was because you were thinking about your kids. If you're in that category, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I see the responses. Yes. And so, and the next question, how many of us have actually experienced a situation where you're in the house with the father, but the father is already absent? Like the father is not a part of the life of the kid, you're in the house already, and it's like you're all by yourself raising the child, right? Okay. So absentee fathers can actually come in many ways. God bless you guys, and everyone for responding. Absentee fathers, it could be physical absenteeism, it could be emotional absenteeism, children that of alcoholics are absentees, children that have lost their fathers, or even sometimes being at war, fathers at war and things like that, absent fathers. So absenteeism can come in different ways, but for us, it's like, I mean, when you've gone through, domestic abuse, most of the time, I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's some domestic abusers that are great fathers, right? But most of the time, you find yourself in a situation where the fathers are already absent, even though they're living in the same house, and so the fathers are emotionally disconnected from the children, either because they're trying to get at you or for whatever reason best known to them. And so while we're talking about absenteeism, absent fathers today, because again, I remember looking at the statistics at that time, when I was going to leave my home and make that decision for my child, that this is just not healthy for me, but this is also not healthy for my son. And I began to look at statistics, and I really became scared. The things that I heard about children where their fathers are not a part of their lives, and that even scares you more, right? So we know about what the statistics say, what the outcomes that they say that, that are out there, okay? And so today I'm going to actually start from what sounds like a bad, thing to want to hear when you're in, a situation where you feel like the father of your children are absent from their lives. I'm going to share that because, not because we think that that's what's going to happen to our children, not because, we want to belong to the statistics, but I think knowledge is power, and understanding what can be a consequence of it helps us to know what to do, okay? I mean, I remember they always said to prepare to fail, to prepare is to prepare to fail. But just being ready such that we can answer the questions that will come up, or the challenges that we might find in the life of our children as we go along. I mean, and I cannot say honestly that, the journey hadn't been rough, but by God's grace, and putting some things in place, it's helped me learn, and I'm still in the process of learning every day, because every stage of the life of a child is different. And as they grow, you go through different stages. Now, what are some of the things that we have learned or we have heard? Okay. You hear discouraging things like, children that are from, that have absent fathers usually will repeat the same patterns. Children that have, absent fathers usually would have anxious social construct, or they won't be able to relate properly with their peers or, with people in the environment. You hear situations where they say absent fathers in the life of a boy would lead to them, ending up with, drug abuse, alcohol, and things like that. Or you hear situations where they say absent fathers in the life of a girl makes them become clingy to guys, and they're higher risk of teenage pregnancies. So these are the things that we hear. Bad news, bad news, bad news all the way. But what's the knowledge we need to have, and what is true? That could be, that could be a fact, but that's not the truth of, and I know that we're not all believers, but permit me, because I'm a Christian, so I'll relate from time to time to also what the Bible has to say, if that's okay. And even though these are the things that are out there, these are the stories that are out there, but I'm sure we also know personal stories of people that have had absent fathers and they have turned out really great in life. And that should be our focus today. And that was one thing I told myself then, that yes, my son's father is absent in his life. He had been absent in his life really since he was born, okay? And I told myself that even though this is what I have heard, this is what people say, I made up my mind that my son will not be one of those, of that statistics. So how do we how do we prepare ourselves, to address absenteeism for the sake of our children? First and foremost, I think as people as a parent, you want to know the signs and symptoms that kids that, when they begin to miss their parents, or when they begin to recognize the absence of the fathers in their life, what are some of the things that you will see? You might begin to see the child become a little more anxious, okay? You might see them withdraw a little bit. I remember in children's church, I teach like 4 to 5 year olds. One of the things that I began to see that made me see that trend, when people were having problems at home, where their fathers began to get missing from, their lives, or were not showing them emotional connection or physical presence. The kids either became very clingy to their teachers, okay, or to strangers, right? They become very clingy, or they become very isolated, okay? They would express anxiety, they would express fear, and you don't even understand what they're afraid of. So they say there are some psychological challenges that, personality disorder problems that can arise from it. So if we begin to see any of those things, anxiety, fear, withdrawal, or over clinginess, okay, it's time to take a step back and ask yourself, what's going on and how can I help? But what I told myself earlier on, before getting to the point of seeing those signs, to tell myself to prepare. Children will definitely ask questions, okay? Especially when they are younger, they will ask questions. Some of the questions they will ask: what happened? Why is my father not here? Especially when they begin to socialize with other kids and they see what normal family or father, mother, children, family structures look like. They begin to ask questions. And the best thing is not to be caught unawares, preparing ourselves that these questions are going to come, and how will they ask these questions? How would we answer these questions? And so it's very important that ahead of the questions coming to us, we prepare our hearts for it and we get answers ready, not lies, not over information, which sometimes is difficult. You want to just share your heart and the pain of your heart. The children can't take all of that, but preparing to give answers. The other thing I noticed with kids like that is that they feel at fault, that their father's being absent in their life is their fault, okay? And it's important that, you reassure the children that, no, it's not your fault, and you're loved, okay? And that takes me to the next point, that it is very important, because when you're a single mom, you get very busy with life and busy trying to play the role of a mother and a father together. And because of that, you might become someone that is easily agitated. You worked all day and then you come back and maybe, like homework is yet to be done, food is yet to be cooked, the whole house. I remember one day I came back home and I'd left my son with somebody to take care of him, who was a little bit on the young side. And I saw a peel of avocado, like the back of avocado on the floor. And I almost started crying. I actually started crying. I didn't almost start crying. And I was like, why am I so upset over avocado peel on the floor? And I realized that it was more of the frustration of everything I had done all day and the things that I still had to do. Sorry, Mommy, that also wants to say something. Or I see your hand.
I'm sorry, it's an error. Thank you.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
An error.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, so we, just realizing that, you need to reassure the kids that they are loved and don't carry out your frustrations on them. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. They didn't put us in that situation. So first, the 3 things I've mentioned. First, just preparing ourselves that the kids will ask questions. All right, and preparing ahead of time to answer the questions that these children will have. That's number one. The second thing is that, reassure them that it's not their fault. A lot of kids always feel like that, they did something. they're responsible for the fact that their fathers are not in their life. And because of that, you see them trying to compensate and show too much love. I remember something that really broke my heart, from my son. I think he hadn't seen his dad in a while, and he forgot his dad's birthday. And, he felt like for more than a year, he felt so bad that, he forgot his dad's birthday, and he felt like maybe that's part of the reason why his dad wasn't always present in his life, And so the guilt that these kids carry for something they haven't done is huge. So we have to just reassure them and show them love. Don't, be mindful not to carry out the frustration of the stress we're feeling as single moms on the kids. Another thing is that we do as moms is that we try and overcompensate. It's either on days we are frustrated, we carry out our frustration on the children, or I want to use the word overlove them, right? But that's really not what we're doing. We're just trying to compensate, right? That in itself, I remember something, I don't know, it's in Yoruba, my mom says it. She says, you can't spoil one child and make the child 10, And so basically what I'm saying here is that, you don't add value to the life of a child with that overcompensation, right? We need to learn to say no sometimes to them when we have to, okay? So show them a lot of love, let them know they are loved, they are cherished, they're important, but don't overcompensate. Don't buy them, like some people will say, oh, they don't have a father, their father is not in their life, after all, what am I working for? Everything they want, everything they say they want, even though they don't really need it, or it's not adding value to them, or it's going to be a source of problem, you want to get it for them. That's a no-no. We can't do that to them, because at the end of the day, a lot of value and structure that a child should have, that both parents should be teaching, we end up being the ones that have to do it, right? And so because of that, we have to be very careful that, when we need to say no, we say no. You don't have to buy everything for them. You don't have to feel guilty for going to work, to feed them. You don't have to feel guilty when you say, you know what, today it's going to be pizza, I can't cook, So don't overcompensate. That's very important. Children also do better with structure, a lot of the times you want to let them go. You don't want, sometimes you're even like, maybe because, maybe there is some custody battle going on and all of that. And because of that, you want to be careful. Oh, I can't do this if, I do this, the father will do this or something, And because of that, you don't want to discipline your children when you need to, and you don't want to put structure in place. Remember, the one thing I kind of always try and remind myself is that, I'm also raising somebody's husband. Okay, I have a son, all right? And, if we have girls, we're raising, somebody's wife. And because of that, you don't want to say, for how long are we going to tell the story? Oh, it was because his father was missing in his life, So no, we don't want that for our kids. And so because of that, we have to learn to have structures for them. Children do well with structure. And at some age, consequences too. Like I tell my son, there are good consequences, there are bad consequences. If we find, if you do something good, there are good consequences, but if you do something bad, there are bad consequences for it. So give your kids structure, and also, let them have consequences when there is a need for it. The other thing I think is very, very important, and I began to see early for my son, and I think for me, that's really the vital take-home point. The fact that they have a missing father in their life, a biological, doesn't mean there is a lack of father figures that, it doesn't mean there's a lack of father figures. So look for people that you can trust and that you've seen their lives, you watch their lives closely. I'm sorry, Sister Janelle, I see your question. Please let me finish this, but your hands up. let me finish this thought, and then I would please hand over to you to ask a question. That's one of the things. So some of the things I did, I'll give an example of what I did. I look for generations of father figures for my child. One was the very older people. I looked at like my dad, for example. I think as a child and as an adult now that my child was a very good dad, or is a very good dad. So I make sure that we structured phone calls with my son on a weekly basis. Okay. And then I have friends that are happily married with children. I scheduled play dates for my son with one or two of those families so that he could see periodically what a good home is like. Okay. The other thing that I want to say about that is that in looking for father figures, we need to be careful. Let me say boyfriends sometimes are not what you need for father figures, in the life of your child. You want to be careful with that, because some of us say, oh, let's jump into a relationship so that, honestly speaking, that might not, if God brings you to the place of healing for yourself and, being healthy, and then bring somebody good in your life that now becomes a father, a lover for you and a father to your child. Yes, but never try and use boyfriends or people that, you're not sure about or might walk out of your life anytime as the people that you want to use as father figures for your children. Sorry, Jenna, please go ahead.
You answered most of my question that I had, because you were talking about structure, and I didn't want us to go too long before I asked the question. A lot of times when you set up a structure, it's a job of two parents, but it's just you doing it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you, how do you respond when he asks for, I want daddy? There are days when they just scream, I want daddy. Mm-hmm. So how do you respond to that? You've answered most of it, because you talked about looking for people who have been stable fathers and ensuring that they spend quality time with them. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want us to miss the structure part, because you're doing mother's job and father's job. And mm-hmm. there are days when, even when you have girls, they ask for daddy.
Absolutely.
So how do you get a daddy to fill in that part of the big picture, or on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. That's actually... I wanted to be honest with my answer. I say sometimes I just scream. In the past, when I was younger, I'll scream and say, just stop it now. But then, and that's a honest response that I had at some point in the past. Which is why I said, don't carry out the frustrations of the things that you're going to on the kid. And then when I learned, I did that once, and of course I felt worse for responding that way. And sometimes I learned, the other thing that I learned to do early was that, and it depends on the type of child. A lot of the times, if you realize, when they do that, is because they are throwing a tantrum. I don't know if, that's been the experience of, so when it's not a tantrum, sometimes when my son was younger, he doesn't really do that much now, but when he was younger and, he would cry and say, what he used to say to me was, why does this person have a daddy and I don't have my daddy? I will just sit there with him and I'll give him a hug, but then he's an emotional child. So it depends on the kid. Sometimes I'll just give him a hug and say, sometimes we don't know what life brings, but we'll make the best of it. I used to have all these conversations that I don't even know what I was having to the child, but but I used to give him a hug and just say, what, everything's going to be fine. Sometimes when they're throwing tantrums and you realize it's a tantrum, you ignore it. I ignore them. I would ignore him, or he will tell me sometimes, and say, like, when he's upset and he wants to have his way and he wouldn't have his way, he'll say he wants to go to his dad. I'll say, okay, you want me to call daddy for you? And then, he will stop. So I think it depends on the situation. There are different responses, but if tantrums are occurring, it's part of structure, to ignore tantrums and say, this is not going to, or you ask them to do something and they say, my daddy. And then you tell them, we'll talk about that after you have done what I asked you to do. So I think it's all part of structure, but then understanding truly that sometimes it's the child feeling bad that they don't have a daddy in their life. If it's not a tantrum, whatever it is, like sometimes I remember there were days that I'll go I'll go drop my son off and his dad will not show up. And those things really used to break him. He would cry, he would like, those things used to break my heart because I saw, how it shattered him, maybe as a 6-year-old, that happened a lot. After a while, he just kind of grew thick skin towards it. But those days, when those things happened, I began to plan father and mother dates with my son, and then when, those were very good days for mother and son dates. When those things happen, I put my son in the car, let's go eat somewhere, one of his favorite restaurants or whatever I could afford at that time, even if it was Dunkin' Donuts, and we have that time together and it just helps, take it away. I ask, he used to like his friends, you want to go on a play date? So when we can, I don't know if anybody has anything better that, they've used, but that's a strategy I've used over the years. And I think for me, or in my son's situation, it's worked.
Yeah, I agree with you, Temitope. Thank you.
Are you on mute?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Dr. Temitope. Okay.
Thank you so much for always, giving us good pointers. But I do agree with you with what you were saying. I agree with you that you should try to fill in the blank. But one of the things I just want to add to that is a lot of times, some of us women are very emotional and we think it's just okay to tell them everything or to break down into tears in front of them. We are really showing to our kids that we are weak and that we're in trouble. That's the way they will take it. So in other words, we are creating more fear in them. We are, creating more insecurity in them. So it's always good, even if you think the questions are difficult or some of the things they're asking you, they could be very emotional, but you will need to try to create boundaries around yourself and also create, fill in the blank ahead of time. It's always good to plan things ahead of time, like you said, before they come. Like creating father figures is so very, very important. Where can we find father figures, especially for people that are here by themselves, maybe they are not in a great community? It's always good to be part of a great community. It's always good to look for, if you look hard enough, you will always see people that are reliable. Maybe pastors in the church, maybe leaders in the church, maybe even, it might even be their, friend's father that takes them to the, to games or things like that. It's always good to just look around. Like you said, it's very important. Please, 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 don't introduce them to your early relationship. If you are not secure, if you are not stable in that relationship, if you are not sure of where you are heading into in that relationship, you are not sure of your future with that guy, please don't introduce your kids to them. That also affects them. A lot of times, I know we're trying to sort ourselves out, but try not to get I'm telling you, I remember after my own incidents and everything, Wani did not meet any other guy. She did not meet any other guy until, I was sure of my husband, my late husband. I was sure that was where, and the moment I introduced her to him, that was it. She did not see me with different guys. It's very important. I know it's a little bit sensitive and emotional. Everybody have different approaches, but it's always good not to introduce them to different, relationships, because we carry them along. Emotions, they have emotions. So they are feeling all these things, and there's always consequences for them, adverse effects. I just want to chip that in, but You've been doing awesomely beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my God bless you.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, DY. And another conversation is coming up with communities, because a lot of what you said, Dr. Timotopa, is based on communities. You find yourself in this situation and you reached out to DY, who was able to support you. She became part of your community. Then you identified persons who can be influential in his life. And then we move on. There can even be families who can be influential in his lives. But we have to have the information. We have to be intentional. And surrounding yourself with the right people is key to raising children that you desire to raise. It takes planning, it takes time, but I also think it takes knowing. Having the information is very important, because a lot of what I've heard you say is you were mindful. You were mindful of what needs to be done for him, and you did it we'd like to say to the best of our ability, but you did it. You did the best. So, and I'm sure it's still a process. Do we have any questions before we continue? Because I have a few questions. Thank you, Felicia. It is great points. It's a lot of nuggets for us to take with us. We have to really.
I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Sister Tooks.
Thank you so much for the nuggets of wisdom. So what about, I do know of a few people who they're separated. They want to be a part of their children's lives, but every time the mom needs them to show up, like the kid is sick or stuff like that, they don't show up. Like they want to be there, they want to be acknowledged as daddy, but they're not, playing the role they should play. What do you advise these people? How do you, even when the dad says, oh, Christmas, I'm going to come take you shopping. How do you prepare the kids? Like, okay, guys, don't be too excited. Please mute your line if you have noise. God bless you. Guys, don't be too excited in case daddy's car might just break down on the highway, just to kind of like prepare them not to expect too much from their dad, like such kind of dads that he's there, he wants to be, but he's not, and the kids are so disappointed. And what do you have to say to such moms here?
Yeah. What I would say is always have a backup plan. Like for me, I always had the expectation, and it wasn't I had a bad attitude towards this person. I already knew that most of the time he wasn't going to fulfill his words. And so because of that, I always had a backup plan, what if he doesn't show up? And after a while, my child got used to it. Sometimes when I'm running and everything, let me go drop you off. He would tell me, why are you even running? You don't even know if he's going to be there. So the kids see, but always have a backup plan. Have your backup plan that at the end of the day will make your child, your kids happy. Because again, these things have impact in the life of those children. So you want to make sure that at the stage where, you have, you can do something about it. Do you have to set expectations? You have to be careful, because it could be, even though you know that this is going to happen, he might not show up, he might not come, you don't want to say to the child that I like your it's going to break down thing, but for me, those things will never have come. That is a lot of wisdom. I didn't have that kind of wisdom. That is come my breakdown along the way, but I would just say, if anything happens, we don't see daddy today, what about Chuck E. Cheese, or what about Dunkin' Donuts, or what about going to the park? You know what I mean? Yeah, and so the kids are not disappointed if that's a pattern. So just, the kids already after a while expect it. So just making the best of it and make sure that the child doesn't go home crying that day, because if not, those things have a lasting impact on the child. I'm sorry. I wanted to mention one more point as far as, things to do. If you see that your child needs therapy, please don't hesitate to take your child to therapy. I usually recommend, and again, I was very intentional about Christian counseling for my child more than I was for myself. And I was happy I made the choice I made for my child because it really helped him. For me, when I went to therapy, I was like, never again in my life, because I didn't make the right choice of, who a therapist was for me. And that was further down the line. I'm glad I was intentional about my son such that he didn't have the kind of experience I had. But if you're going to get therapy, if you need to get therapy for your kids, but get the right kind of therapy. It's very important that you do your extra research. I usually recommend Christian counseling or Christian therapy. There are pastors who have also done psychology, or and they've been able to integrate these two things and create things that are very helpful for children. So if you find that those things are affecting your children, behavior in school, or interaction with peers or things like that, find a therapist for them.
Can I just add two more things? First, we need to be very careful the kind of words, the choice of our words around them, especially about their dad. We need to stop berating their dad. We need to stop putting their dad down. Allow the kids to know their dad and understand their dad. They know better, but do not. I don't care even if the guy was a bad guy. Don't tell your children all that. They don't need to be reminded, especially if they are part of the process you don't need to give them those flashbacks. You are not doing them any favor, and you are not doing yourself any favor either. So I really like to tell mothers that. Then they will know, eventually they will know, they will differentiate, they will know the truth eventually. Then another thing that you really want to say is, I lost my second point, but anyway, using the right words around them is very important. Eventually when they grow up, they might ask about the story, but you don't need to, like Temitope said, you don't need to tell them your heart. Pour out everything. Try to just pick your words. Tell them the truth. You don't need to make up stories about their dad not showing up. No, you don't need to make up stories. But like Tokwe said, always have a backup plan is very key, very important. You don't, yes, when we are upset, a lot of times we are overwhelmed. Especially you've gone to work all day and you came back and especially for the teenagers, I don't know about you, the whole house is all upside down, things all over the floor, and immediately you are entering the house, you've been screaming and yelling, and we need to calm down. Sometimes we need to allow the house to be dirty. And this, I'm telling you based on my experience. I've done it. I've been there. But now, in hindsight, I know better. That's not the right approach. A lot of times, it's possible. Most of the time, we take our pain out on the kids. We take it out on them because you are tired. You went to work. You came back. You're cleaning. You are picking. You are taking them to games and all that. It's a lot. You are trying to do the job of two people. It's a lot. So we just need to try and pace ourselves. What I try to do is I don't rush out of my car when I get home now. I take some time, maybe 5-10 minutes sometimes in the car to calm myself down, to think about what am I going to do when I get out of the car, or things I did. This one was, I taught myself how to do that over time. And it was later that I learned from a therapist that that's actually one of the good things that you can do to yourself. I'm like, oh, Holy Spirit taught me how to do this, because I didn't know that you don't need to rush out of your car. Just sit 5 minutes, 3 minutes, it might even be 2 minutes to calm the nerves and to prepare yourself for what you're going to do. It's very important, especially as single parents. You guys, any single mom here, I really salute you. It's a hard job. It's a hard job, but it is possible by His grace. So allow God to be the Father, to be the missing link, and He will grace us. In Jesus' name, thank you.
Thank you, DY. I tell my kids that I come in the house, I have very young kids. And I tell them mommy's tired. And I guess I just started doing this out of frustration, but I tell them mommy's tired. she needs 15 minutes to herself. And they look at me like, what? Is that possible? And I said, yes, I just need 15 minutes to myself. And then they go play and then they come back. Thank you, DY. Thank you, Dr. Timitopa. I'm wanting, please let's ask questions. I have a few questions, but I would like us to ask questions in the audience. Is there any new questions? You said something that caught my attention. You said that there's symptoms that we see in our kids when the father is absent, whether he's physically there or not. And I work with children and I have children. So I see that often enough. I would like you to, if there's any advice on, as a parent, we may not understand what our children are going through, or we may be overwhelmed, as DY said, which most times is the case. We cannot address all of these things. What would you suggest we do? I'm looking at my child. I know they need help, but I can't help them. How do I approach that?
Yeah, I think that's why one of the things I did was therapy. I did that when I could, for my son. And so that really helps. And then sometimes we feel like, maybe finances is, a big deal and we can afford therapy, the kind of therapy that our children actually really need. If that's the case, like you mentioned, community is something that, I really worked on building. I won't say I worked on it, but God planted me with communities. So sometimes it's just a friend, especially now that my son is becoming a teenager or 15 years, there are people that sometimes I just feel like I'm not reaching him, but God has planted people and he doesn't like being reported. So I pick up my phone and I say, talk to this person, and because I know that if I respond to it, it will get out of hand, So I pick up my phone. I know he doesn't like being reported and I report him, and at least those ones have a conversation with him and he tries not to do it again. So we need to have resources and we need to reach out to the resources we have. One of the things, my pastor is a female, her husband is now a grandpa to my son, so because my immediate family is not in the US. So sometimes they let's go see grandpa, and so have resources because that's why the Bible says that he sets the solitary in families. God did not plan us to do life in isolation. And God has put, the hand, the eyes, different parts of the body for the edification and the building up of the saints, including our children that, God knows God knows that everybody needs help and needs different parts of the body.
Amen. Touchlink is a faith-based family, and I know organization. The church is our family. The church is supposed to be our family. I mean, wherever you worship, we should know that we can reach out to persons in the church. Sometimes you have to ask for advice. Who can I approach? Who can I talk to? But when it comes to male influence and male figures, doing male things with them, we can reach out to those persons. And I'm sure that we're going to get the results that we're looking for. Thank you so much. A lot of times too, we need to talk to our children, their schools, their teachers, their peers, if they're on sports team, talk to them and get feedback, to ensure that we're covering all the grounds. Does someone have a question?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
What do you do when when the father is absent? Well, is not consistent, basically, and then you have people around you who are supportive of your child, but your child is kind of not, for want of a better word, not appreciative of those people just because they want the father. So even though there are other people who are there for them, they're like, I don't want you, I want my father. Or I don't know. How do you deal with a situation like that?
I think it's important that we're not trying to make it look like we're replacing their fathers with these people. I mean, that is very important because children will definitely they would. So it depends on how, you know, we open the kids up to it. Like, for example, if somebody, for example, I'll say a child likes sports, and then the person is in charge, talks to your son, since your son starts with sports, you know, in discussing with them, they develop an interest that is beyond, and so when the person gives advice, because they found a mutual point, it's easy for them to listen to them. So let's never, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but sometimes when, people try and, like put this other father figures in the life of a child and make it look like they're trying to replace their fathers, the kids will kick against it. So let them develop natural friendships.
I just want to put some perspective on that, where it's not that you're trying to replace their father, but in the areas where their father is supposed to be stepping up and they're not stepping up, you have other family members who are willing to, you know, take them here or do that for them, but I guess, I don't know if it's like a rebellion stage, maybe the child is in or whatever, but you know that they want their father, and because their father is not showing up, they're like, I don't know if it's to get the attention, or I don't know if it's just to reinforce their need or what, I don't know.
Yeah, Sunshine, let me answer that. I think the approach is very important. Relationship also is very important for our kids. So it doesn't look like we are just replacing the man in their hearts and in their life, because they still care for their dad, right? That, I would say, there is a lot going on with your son. Before you even introduce a stranger or somebody to them, I think you need to have one-on-one with your son, or have a relationship where it's tough, because I've been there. Sometimes they will put a wall that you can't even penetrate, especially when
no
they are
strangers. Sorry, this is like with family members.
Yeah, even with family members, you don't know their perception. You don't know what they've seen. You don't know their conclusion. So you need to know your son. In that situation, I would really want to take them out, not in the crowd, just one-on-one with them, have some time, and then don't be in a hurry to hear what's your view about Uncle this, what's going on with this person, just to get their perspective. And I will, if they are resisting that, I won't push for it. Then I will try to allow time over it, then to try to see if they can have other type of friendship in different community. Maybe that are not even family. Maybe they don't want anything to do with family. So maybe you can look at other areas. Maybe somebody in the church, or somebody in the maybe their coach at school. Maybe somebody that you can trust. And at least you want to engage them too. Let them know that they are part of. When I'm making some decision in my house, I'm not even allowed to make decision without them. We all have to say, okay, this is what we think we want to do. That's how we do it. So they have, because they have a stake in it, right? So you don't want it to be like you are imposing anything on them. I think it's good, especially when they are not like little kids anymore. Little kids, 4, 3, 2, you can maneuver your way around them. Even by the time they are 5, you can see. But by the time they are like around 10, 11, 12, 13, it's very challenging. It's very challenging. So you really want to at least give them different options, and then, but it's more important. And then I'll say pray. Please pray. Mother, parents, please pray. Our kids need prayer, honestly. A lot of things prayer can do. You see, when I was with my ex-husband, when it was visitation, because he fought me with visitation rights and all that, I prayed it out. I went to the place of prayer and I said, if he has any bad intention, he will be so occupied and distracted, I will never come for visitation. And that was exactly what happened. To the extent that it got to a time that I'm like, and I But the thing was, but my prayer was legit, that if he still have anything that will negatively affect my daughter or negatively affect me, that relationship will not foster. It's not a cause really, but it's just more of protective prayer. And that was exactly what happened. And for our kids also, there's a lot going on inside of them. There's a lot of things that they are bottling. A lot of times we even get treatment for ourselves. We don't pay attention to the children. We need to, no matter how small they are, we need to pay attention to them. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Levi.
Okay, could I ask another question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so how do you handle a situation where, okay, you see that the child is going through a lot because of their father's inconsistency or whatever, and you tried your best to help him to understand what the child is going through, but to no avail. You recommend therapy, they're against it. You go ahead and you get the therapy for the child. And when the therapist requests to see both parents, will speak with both parents and so on, during the discussion, they just up and leave. And they're like, oh, well, whatever. They up and leave. And you're left in limbo. Like, you always want to include the parent, but what do you do when you're trying your best and you just left in a place where you just don't know what to do anymore, and you're just in a place? Is it wise? My question is it wise to just say, look, you know what? I've been trying my hardest to include your father. However, he doesn't seem interested. So listen, we're going to do this all on our own. Is that a wise thing to do? Like, what do you do in a situation like that?
Yeah. So, the truth of the matter is that, it's actually, you're one of the lucky people to have them haven't gone to any therapy sessions with you in the first place. That's pretty uncommon. So a lot of the times you just have to already make up your mind that this is a battle you might have to fight by yourself. No explanation to the kids for it. You want the best for your kids. You see the future and you want the best for them. So you take stands for things that would add value to their life, irrespective, because this is what I keep saying to myself, irrespective of the absence of his father in his life, my child is going to succeed. And that is that's my tunnel vision, and I don't let him, be the influence on what happens and what doesn't happen, as much as legally. Like, if I remember at some point after my son started therapy, then I had sole legal custody. And then when we had shared legal custody, he refused for him to do therapy. I went through his primary care doctor. If the primary care doctor recommends it, there's nothing that can be done about it. Is a medical doctor's recommendation, and when for some time before we could see the primary care, I looked for other resources. I have people in church that do child therapy. It doesn't have to be under a structured therapy session. It's our friend. What I mean is, it is like a younger friend in church, one of the children's teachers in the department. And I'm like, can you please talk to my son from time to time? So we have to just find our way with the sole goal of our children will succeed.
Our children will succeed. Our children will succeed. And we have to have, that is our goal. And we have to be prepared to do it alone, because we're putting ourselves through more emotional trauma, and we're putting our children through more emotional trauma by trying to get the other party involved, especially when they're not willing, which the reality is most of the times they're not willing, but we can't really be responsible for their behavior. We have to focus on the child. And it helps a lot, DY insists that we have to draw a line where this is us and this is our children. We can't muddy those waters, because when we do that, the children, they're going through a lot, and then they're feeding off of the aura that we're projecting. And most often it's too much for them. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to keep the child's destiny in our focus, in as Dr. Timotopoulos said, in our tunnel vision. It has to be there. So we have to separate the two. The other party is not cooperating. Okay, I need to take care of myself. I need to take care of my child or children. That's it. And maybe journaling would help. It would help us to pray. It would help us to see the vision. It would help us to see how much we've accomplished, because a lot of times we don't take stock of that. We've accomplished a lot yesterday, just getting them out of the house, completing homework, cooking meals, going to work, comforting them, talking to them. We have accomplished much. That one day where you had that meltdown that you didn't want them to see you melting, tomorrow will be a better day. So thank you so much, Dr. Timitopa. Is there any questions? We have to go in the interest of time. Please drop your comments in the comment box. We can still respond to you. You can contact us at info@touchlink.org. It's all in the comments. If you want to continue the conversation, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you, DY. Subscribe and share. Even if you haven't subscribed, you can share these videos. It's better when you subscribe. You could even put on your notification whenever we're on. You're going to get it's going to come up on, we have a lot of things popping up on our screens. This can pop up when we're on live or when we post new videos. Please register to walk. Be there so we know that everybody's saying that you're very interested in this cause. You support this cause. Register to walk. You can walk with your families. You can walk with your friends. You can fundraise, because this is where we get money from to do the great work that TouchLink is doing. All of the money goes towards victims and survivors of domestic violence. Dr. Timitopa started by talking about DY going to New York to support her. A lot of the times, maybe, we have so much going on, but TouchLink supports. I can testify. If you ever need help, reach out, and there will be somebody calling you, somebody messaging you, checking, and showing up for you. That is how you start to build a community. A lot of times when you're being violated, you're confused. You might be going through the blues. You might be depressed. There's so many things going on. You need somebody who can help you to focus, to move forward. And that's what TouchLink does, giving you back your freedom and your identity as you deserve. So please subscribe, donate, and let's walk on the 30th, okay? Thank you, Dr. Timitopa. Thank you so much. I know you've been doing a lot of work in your professional sphere, and you also, you're mindful about parenting, and you're happy to share that with us. You've walked the walk, and now you're teaching us, especially for those with young children, even those with preteens and older kids. You've given us a lot to think about tonight. And I know that most persons on the platform are grateful for the information. I am. And it gives me a lot of excitement, the things I'm doing right and the things that I can add to what I'm already doing. Those days when I want to scream at them, we'll be fine. But most days we can be intentional about our parenting. And you've really encouraged us. If there's anyone on this line who's going through domestic violence, who's being abused, or if you know someone that's being abused, if there are children involved, reach out, and we can help you. We can help the person that you know. Our number is, one more time, 866-682-4626. It's also in the chat. And feel free to reach out. You don't even have to give your real name. You might just be seeking some advice. But call someone, write someone, and it's the beginning. You will feel so good after you've made that call or after you've contacted someone. If there's no more, there's a lot of information in our chat. Join us on Monday for another great session. Yes, it was very informative. We need monthly partners. Please join. No gift is too small. No gift is too big. If you know persons who are willing to donate, please submit TouchLink as an organization that they can donate to. let them know that TouchLink exists and what TouchLink mission is. If you want to give monthly, that would be awesome. Please subscribe. You can give monthly. We will accept your gift no matter the size. So on that note, are there any closing remarks? Any thoughts, DY?
Thank
or
you,
Dr.
everybody. Thank
Tematopa?
you. I think we are done. We already overstayed our
Past
time.
our time.
I want you guys to go take care of your family before the, the bedtime. Thank you so much,
Yes.
everyone. Thank you, Dr. Temitopa.